In 1845, a 27-year-old man walked into the woods with an axe and a question that still feels dangerous today. His name was Henry David Thoreau. He went to the area around Walden Pond in Massachusetts and built a small cabin with his own hands. He wasn't trying to disappear. He wasn't trying to become famous. He was trying to test something. He wanted to know how much of life is actually necessary and how much of it is just noise we accept without thinking. He built his house for $28.12. He tracked every nail, every board, every expense. He planted beans. He grew potatoes and corn. He calculated what it cost to feed himself. He lived there for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. And when he came back, he wrote a book called Walden. Most people think it's a book about nature. It isn't. It's a book about freedom. It's a book about the price of a life. And hidden inside it is a rule from 1845 that still works today. Here's the rule. The real cost of anything is not the price tag. It's the amount of your life you have to exchange for it. That sounds simple. It's not. Because we are trained to think in money, not in life. We ask, can I afford this? We don't ask, is this worth my existence? Imagine looking at your last bank statement. Now imagine translating every purchase into hours worked. Not your salary on paper. Your real hours, after taxes, after commuting, after stress, after the mental load you carry home. That new phone might not cost $1,000. It might cost 60 hours of your life. That vacation might not cost $3,000. It might cost 2 months of pressure. That bigger apartment might cost not just money, but the freedom to ever slow down. Thoreau wrote that the cost of a thing is the amount of life required to be exchanged for it. He wasn't being poetic. He was being literal. You trade hours of your finite existence for objects, experiences, status. The problem is not that we trade. The problem is that we rarely calculate honestly. There are 2 economies running at the same time: the money economy and the life economy. The money economy says, if you have the cash, you can buy it. The life economy asks what part of you must shrink to sustain it. Every purchase has maintenance. Every upgrade has pressure. Every increase in lifestyle creates a new baseline you must defend. You don't just buy a car. You buy insurance, repairs, gas, anxiety about scratches, and the job that keeps it all running. You don't just buy a bigger house. You buy higher bills, more furniture, more cleaning, more time spent maintaining instead of living. And slowly, almost invisibly, your freedom narrows. This is what Thoreau called a life of quiet desperation. Quiet because on the outside, it looks fine. Good job, stable income, decent home. Desperation because inside there's a sense of running but not arriving. You feel busy but not fulfilled. Tired but not satisfied. You tell yourself this is normal. Everyone feels this. Maybe they do. But normal is not the same as necessary. The 1845 rule forces you to flip the question. Instead of asking how much something costs in dollars, you ask how much it costs in life. Instead of asking how to earn more, you ask how to need less. That shift is small in words, but massive in consequences. Thoreau discovered that basic living was surprisingly inexpensive. He grew much of his own food and realized he could survive on very little. He could have worked harder to afford fancier meals. But he asked himself why. Would the extra flavor make him more free? Would it make his mind clearer? Would it give him more time? If not, then it was not worth the trade. This is where most of us get trapped. We don't work just to survive. We work to upgrade. Then we work to maintain the upgrade. Then we work to avoid losing the upgrade. And somewhere in that cycle, survival turns into performance. We buy things not because they add depth, but because they signal success. And everyone else is doing the same thing. It becomes an endless loop disguised as progress. Thoreau wrote that a man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone. That sentence quietly dismantles the modern definition of wealth. We assume wealth means access to more. He suggests wealth means dependence on less. If you need very little to be content, nobody can control you easily. You don't have to tolerate a job that drains you just to pay for a lifestyle that impresses people who are also tired. When your needs are high, your fear is high. Fear of losing income, fear of falling behind, fear of being judged. When your needs are modest, your options expand. You can take a risk, you can leave, you can say no. That is a form of power most people never calculate. The second part of the 1845 rule is about how you live, not just what you spend. Thoreau wrote that he went to the woods because he wished to live deliberately. Deliberately means not by accident, not by drift, not by default. It means you choose instead of slide. Most lives are built through drift, one logical step after another. School leads to college. College leads to a job. The job leads to a promotion. The promotion leads to a bigger lifestyle. The bigger lifestyle demands more income. And years pass. You look around and realize you never actually stopped to ask whether this path was yours or just available. Living deliberately requires interruption. It requires asking questions that feel inconvenient. Why am I doing this? Who am I trying to impress? What would I choose if nobody was watching? What is actually essential to me? Those questions can destabilize a comfortable narrative. It's easier to stay on autopilot. Autopilot is efficient. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to defend your choices. You're just doing what everyone else does. But autopilot also means you might reach the end of your life and realize you executed someone else's plan flawlessly. Thoreau wrote that he wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. The marrow is the core, the most nourishing part. He didn't want surface-level existence. He didn't want endless distraction and constant comparison. He wanted to know what life felt like when stripped to essentials. We often assume depth requires adding more experiences, more travel, more variety. Sometimes depth comes from subtraction. Subtract noise, subtract unnecessary commitments, subtract the need to constantly display your progress. When you remove excess, what remains becomes sharper. Living deliberately doesn't mean rejecting comfort. It means choosing it consciously. It means defining what is enough before the world defines it for you. If you never decide what enough looks like, the target will keep moving. There will always be someone with a bigger house, a better job title, a more impressive life. If your contentment depends on comparison, you will never arrive. The third part of the 1845 rule redefines wealth completely. Wealth is not accumulation. Wealth is independence. You can earn a high income and still be trapped if your lifestyle requires every dollar. You can look successful and feel owned by your obligations. That is not wealth. That is a well-decorated cage. Time is the real currency. Money is stored time. You exchange hours for dollars. Then you exchange dollars for goods. The question is whether those goods give you back more time or demand even more of it. If every raise leads to a bigger lifestyle, you lock yourself in tighter. If your income rises but your needs stay steady, you create margin. Margin creates choice. Choice creates freedom. The discipline of enough is rare. It requires you to stop before you are forced to. It requires you to resist automatic upgrades. It requires you to ignore the subtle pressure to prove yourself. But once you define enough, something shifts. You stop chasing endlessly. You start protecting what matters. Thoreau did not remain in the woods forever. That is important. The experiment was not about escape. It was about proof. He proved to himself that another way of living was possible. Once you prove that, you are never the same. Even if you return to the city, even if you take a job, because now you know you have a choice. The modern version of this experiment does not require a cabin. It requires awareness. Track your spending. Translate it into life hours. Notice what drains you. Notice what energizes you. Remove one non-essential thing and observe the effect. Most people fear that simplifying will shrink their life. Often, it expands it. With less to maintain, you have more attention for what is real. The reason the 1845 rule still works is because human nature has not changed. We still chase status. We still fear missing out. We still equate busyness with importance. We still postpone happiness until the next milestone. But the equation remains constant. More needs equal less freedom. Fewer needs equal more freedom. Freedom is not found in a future version of your life where everything is finally perfect. It is found in the boundaries you draw now. It is found in the purchase you decide against, in the expectation you release, in the realization that you do not have to participate in every game available. Thoreau wrote that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life he has imagined, he will meet with unexpected success in common hours. That success is not necessarily fame or fortune. It is alignment. It is the quiet certainty that your life is yours. The 1845 rule is simple but demanding. Measure everything in life, not money. Live deliberately instead of drifting. Define enough before the world defines it for you. Need less to be harder to control. Protect your time as if it were sacred, because it is. Here is the wisdom at the center of it all. You do not need more to be free. You need clarity. When you know what is essential, the unnecessary loses its power over you. Now I want you to think about one thing in your life that costs more life than it is worth. One commitment, one expense, one habit. Write it down. Be honest. That awareness is the beginning of freedom. If this made you rethink how you spend your time and energy, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more ideas about designing a life that feels like it actually belongs to you, subscribe and stay with me. The deliberate life is not built in a forest. It is built in decisions you make every day.